Serial killers represent humankind's darkest hearts and most sinister minds. Their motivations range from thrill-seeking to a need for power and control, fueled by psychopathy, antisocial behavior, and sadism. We may question how a human being could commit such heinous acts. Hi guys, and welcome back to Crimeco, where we break down some of the most gruesome true crime cases from all over the world, giving you the most up-to-date detailed information. If that sounds like something you are interested in, be sure to subscribe and don't forget to give this video a like. A like from you really helps the channel. Thank you. Now let's dive in. The macabre tale of Charles Albright unfolded in the sprawling metropolis of Dallas, Texas, a gleaming center of commerce and culture, but with an underbelly veiled in shadows. Bordered by the winding Trinity River, Dallas emerged as a major city upon the discovery of oil reserves in the 1930s. With the proliferation of petroleum companies and technology firms, Dallas grew into an economic powerhouse, the very picture of wealth and progress. Its shining skyline, punctuated by sleek skyscrapers, cemented its reputation as an urban gem of the South. But beyond the glittering facade lay a grittier side to the city, a world unseen by the upper crust who flocked to Dallas' elite galleries and restaurants. In certain neighborhoods, poverty and crime festered out of view. Here, drug dealing and prostitution plagued street corners under cover of night. And it was these meaner streets that became the hunting grounds of the killer, soon to be known as the Eyeball Murderer. Charles Frederick Albright entered this world on August 10, 1933 in Amarillo, Texas. He was adopted as an infant by the loving couple Fred and Dell Albright, who raised him in Dallas. Dell, a schoolteacher, doted on young Charles. She challenged him academically, helping him skip grades in school. But there were early signs of trouble. As a boy, Charles took great interest in killing small animals and preparing their stuffed remains, dreaming of becoming a taxidermist. His mother indulged this gruesome hobby, aiding him in preserving the animal carcasses. At age 13, Charles earned his first brush with the law when he was arrested for aggravated assault. He graduated high school early at 15 and enrolled in North Texas University to study pre-med. Yet trouble followed. Soon Charles found himself in jail for a year at age 16, convicted of theft and possession of stolen firearms. After his release, he attended Arkansas State Teachers College, continuing his pre-med major. In 1954, at age 20, Charles married a fellow student, Betty Nestor. They had a daughter, but his criminal behavior persisted. In 1965, after more arrests for theft and forgery, Charles separated from Betty. They divorced officially in 1974. Throughout the 1970s and 80s, Charles spent time in and out of jail for offenses ranging from theft and child molestation to forging checks. His adoptive mother, Dell, passed away in 1981. By 1990, Charles lived alone in Dallas, making a meager living as a self-employed hairdresser and handyman. It was around this lonely time that his depraved desires took over, leading to the gruesome killing spree that marked his infamous descent into madness. Charles Albright's bloody rampage began in late 1990, when he started targeting vulnerable women working as prostitutes in Dallas. In late 1990 and early 1991, the neighborhood was rocked by the savage murders of three local women, Mary Lou Pratt, Susan Peterson, and Shirley Williams. Though no direct evidence initially tied the murders together, one grisly similarity soon became clear. Each woman had had her eyes expertly removed, earning the killer the chilling moniker, the Eyeball Killer. Darkness falls on the Dallas suburb of Oak Cliff. As the sun slips below the horizon, shadows stretch across aging storefronts and dirt-packed side streets. Only a few neon signs blink to life in the gathering gloom, casting a reddish hue over otherwise deserted sidewalks. A young woman in go-go boots and a miniskirt appears from an alleyway, glancing warily up and down the street. Her heels click slowly past boarded windows plastered with graffiti. She pauses under the buzzing neon vacancy sign of the Star Motel, once a popular spot for trysts and transactions of all kinds. Mary Lou Pratt was a fixture on these streets, peddling her body to support a crushing drug addiction. At 33, she had lost the blush of youth, but not the urgency for her next fix. She climbed into a stranger's car night after night, trusting her wits to keep her safe as she was driven into the darkness. On the night of December 13, 1990, however, her luck ran out. Pratt's body was discovered the next morning, discarded like trash on a desolate South Dallas road. Stripped nearly naked in shot execution style, the scene gave little clue about the full extent of the horror inflicted upon her. It was only once the medical examiner peeled back her eyelids that the sadistic precision of the killer became clear. Her eyes had been surgically removed, the delicate skin around the sockets left strangely untouched. 2 months later, 27-year-old Susan Peterson was found in the same area, similarly violated both in body and in spirit. With 2 victims linked by such unspeakable misfortune, Dallas police feared a serial killer was prowling the streets of Oak Cliff. Their fears were confirmed in March 1991, when a third body was discovered, 41-year-old prostitute Shirley Williams. Beaten and sexually brutalized, Williams too had her eyes removed with chilling accuracy. Veteran homicide detectives John Westphalen and Stan McNear were tasked with unraveling the clues to catch the perpetrator quickly before he could claim more victims. They tried to get information from local prostitutes, but struggled to find concrete leads. Though the murders created a media frenzy, the police investigation moved slowly with little evidence to go on. Meanwhile, Charles Albright, now in his late 50s, was living in Oak Cliff and working as a freelance painter. He was known for his artistic flair, from painting portraits to photographing flowers in his garden. As detectives struggled to find the killer, they eventually came across Albright's name through 2 critical leads. First, a local woman came forward and described Albright's long-standing fascination with eyes, both in his artwork and his taxidermy as a boy. Second, officers Matthews and Smith had previously questioned a local prostitute named Veronica Rodriguez, who claimed a man named Axton Schindler rescued her from a murder attempt. Schindler, it turned out, was renting a property owned by none other than Charles Albright himself. Though circumstantial, these clues pointed to Albright as a potential suspect. When police searched his home, they found numerous crime books and knife paraphernalia, as well as surgical blades matching the cuts made on the victims. Fibers from Albright's home were later matched to fibers found on victim Shirley Williams. Also, it was alleged that as a child, Albright was obsessed with taxidermy, practicing his eye surgery skills on small creatures. As a young man, he played twisted pranks, stealing the eyeballs from photos of his college friends' ex-girlfriends. His passion for eyes followed him into adulthood, yet he always managed to keep his deviancy hidden behind an agreeable smile. When detectives finally extracted Albright's name from the web of violence and deceit woven around the 3 brutal murders, they descended on his home expecting to find trophies from his kills. Instead, they discovered a house of horrors far exceeding their expectations. Surgical tools surrounded sketches of female faces with empty eye sockets. Books on serial killers shared shelf space with knife paraphernalia. Strands matching the victim's hair clung to carpets soaked with bleach. Albright maintained his innocence, but prosecutors felt confident they had their man. The case against Albright continued building as officers uncovered his long history of deception, forgery, and violence. Charles Albright was arrested on March 22, 1991, and charged with the 3 notorious murders that had captivated and terrified Dallas. Due to lack of eyewitnesses and definitive forensic evidence, prosecutors relied heavily on circumstantial fibers linking Albright to the third victim, Shirley Williams. After a tense trial, the jury returned a guilty verdict on December 18, 1991 for the murder of Williams. Albright received a life sentence, though he would never be tried for the deaths of Pratt or Peterson. The eyeball killer case forces society to confront the uncomfortable truth that monsters may lurk behind the mundane routines of everyday life. What inner anguish fuels the desire to extinguish human life so cruelly? We may never fully comprehend it. But we must stand together, voices raised in grief for stolen futures and determination to build communities of healing. For in the end, peace will always triumph over depravity. Though Charles Albright was convicted of only one murder, many questions lingered in the wake of his trial. Police suspected his involvement in numerous other deaths, disappearances, and attacks on women over the years. Some theorized that his first victim was a female hitchhiker named Ellen, murdered in the late 1970s after Albright picked her up on a remote highway outside Dallas. Ellen was found shot execution-style and assaulted, but her eyes were still intact, leading investigators to wonder if Albright's mutilation compulsion had not yet fully formed at that time. Dallas police also suspected Albright in the death of Rhonda Bowie, a prostitute stabbed to death in a motel in 1988. But again, her eyes had not been removed. The three Oak Cliff murders from 1990 to 1991 bore the distinct signature marking Albright's escalation to serial slaughter. After those killings, Albright allegedly approached a prostitute named Mona Stevens and offered to pay extra to cut her eyelids while they had sex. She refused but later recognized Albright's mugshot on the news. Terrified she had narrowly escaped being his next victim, she reported him to the police. Detectives could never definitively link Albright to crimes predating the 1990s, but his older daughter suspected her father may have committed other murders across the country. She claimed Albright took mysterious road trips in the 1960s through Louisiana, Arkansas, and Florida, returning suddenly weeks later with no explanation. Albright had relatives in these states, providing cover for his travels. But his daughter wondered if more victims had met their end at the hands of her father in those places so many years ago. And so closed the chilling case of Charles Albright, the notorious eyeball killer who eluded capture for months while sowing terror across Dallas. In the end, justice caught up to the cunning psychopath, but many questions still lingered in his wake. Could a seemingly normal teacher and family man hide such darkness inside him? What traumatic events in his past triggered these murderous urges? And did his perverse obsession extend beyond the three known victims? We may never unravel all the mysteries buried in Albright's disturbed mind. Today, the name Charles Albright still evokes dread in Dallas, forever linked to the gruesome unsolved eyeball killers. The families of Mary Lou Pratt and Susan Peterson never saw justice for their loved ones. Yet Albright's conviction provided some sliver of solace. The evil eye fetishist would never again harm another innocent soul. But while the eyeball killer faced earthly justice, his crimes left permanent scars on the Dallas communities terrorized by his bloody rampage. The back alleys of Oak Cliff, once prowling grounds for Albright's sadistic desires, remain haunted by anguished spirits unable to rest. Albright died behind bars in 2020 at the age of 87 years, closing the curtain on mysteries that will now never be solved. His name will be forever linked to the horrific removal of his victims' eyes, a calling card that earned him the chilling moniker, the Eyeball Killer. For police and victims' families seeking closure, uncertainty will always linger. But the citizens of Dallas can rest easier knowing that Charles Albright's reign of terror has ended for good. The case leaves a somber warning for community members to remain vigilant against evil hiding in plain sight. Albright's facade of normalcy concealed a capacity for evil that shocked all those who thought they knew him. We must guard not only against obviously dangerous individuals, but also against those poisonous few who disguise their cruelty with smiles. Only by standing together, eyes wide open, can we hope to detect and diffuse the threats that undermine humanity's shared longing for peace. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to stay up to date with the latest true crime cases. We appreciate having you as part of our community as we explore the mysteries that continue to fascinate us all. Stay curious and remember, justice may stay hidden in the darkest corner. Thanks for watching, and see you on the next one.